Dennis Allen on the Saints hot seat, off the bench overtime. Jacob Hester, no T Bob, and I believe Nick Underhill is joining him. Let's go ahead and jump straight in, react to the video.
Here it is, 9 o'clock, so you know what that means. We're going to talk to our guy, Nick Underhill, neworleans.football. Now, Nick, how you doing? Always a pleasure.
Doing good, doing good. How you doing?
How many beers deep would you be at Epcot if it was open for 1 minute and 43 seconds?
Apparently, T Bob is in Epcot. Let me tell you this. I've never been to Epcot. I've never done drinking around the world. I'm very jealous of it. I would love to do it. But his question, how many beers deep would you be? Don't you kind of have to just drink whatever's given to you? You know, if you're in Japan and they give you a plum wine or something, or a sake, don't you have to drink that? You can't just drink a Bud Heavy every single place you go. So fate kind of has to decide what the drink of choice is per country as far as I see it.
Zero, man. I don't partake. I have my own beer, but I don't really drink. So I would still be a zero, you know, just fighting the fight.
Unbelievable. I mean, not unbelievable that he doesn't drink, but unbelievable like the idea of being in Disney World and just having to fight the fight. Just kind of have to go in just completely sober, survive that experience. Kudos to him.
I can appreciate that. You know, everybody's built a little bit different, and our guy T Bob Hebert is, well, he's built the mostest. All right, let's get to the New Orleans Saints and what we saw on Sunday. Kind of a weird game to break down. You turn the TV on, first play for the New Orleans Saints, interception, and you're like, oh man, here we go. And then you look up, it's 21-0, and like that's discouraging. And
yes,
you see the comeback.
Very much so.
You can appreciate the fight. It's so hard to come back in the NFL. Typically, that game ends 35-3, or it ends 42-10.
I will never, as long as I watch these videos, I will never get over the background of this like space invader, synthwave, dystopian future cityscape that we're flying through while talking about the 5-7 New Orleans Saints.
Or something like that. They fought like hell to get back into that game, and you fall just short. So let's go through the totality of the game. Kind of initially 21-0. What were your thoughts?
Well, my issue with the whole 21-0 thing were the 3 and outs. The same issues over and over. We have not scored a touchdown on the first possession of any game this season. And now you can tack on an interception into that long list of ineptitude, word of the day. That's my biggest problem. Every time the Saints struggle, it's that 3 and out here, 3 and out there, wasted possession here. I just don't understand how they can keep, like, no one starts worse than the Saints offensively. That's just a fact. No other team in the NFL is out there starting games like we start. And it's really difficult to watch the team continually put themselves in awful positions game after game after game.
At 21-0, I reached over, I tapped Mike Triplett, and I was like, we got to write that this is the end. Like, I thought it was over. Like, I thought they were going to have to fire everybody by Monday morning, and I know that's not their method of operation. They want to be patient. They want to wait. They want to let the season play out. But if you get beaten in a game like that, 42-10, 35-3, 50-10, whatever it looked like it was going to be, and you got the lower bowl of the stadium is all Lions fans, everybody's booing your team. You got "Let's Go Lions" chants coming up through the building. At a certain point, it becomes a business decision, and you're.
Yeah, I mean, if you really encapsulate what all was going on in that game, I keep talking about how the game is like the last thing that we're worried about. The game is like the last thing that's really kind of important here. The everything that was happening outside of it, you know, the fans booing, the team has been bad for a month, the coaches have been awful. You know, Dennis Allen's record speaks for itself. Pete Carmichael has been under fire for 2 seasons. You know, the fans booing the players. You know, Derek Carr, franchise quarterback, comes in to the city and he's been underwhelming. You know, everything that was happening around it. I agree with Nick. You know, the Saints are not, look, it's obvious, guys. They're not going to make a move until the offseason, if they make a move. I think they will make a move, but regardless, it's not coming in the middle of the season. It's certainly not coming in week 14, right? So, but if they lose that game 42-7 or something, in that the way it was happening, because if the comeback would not have happened, the boos would not have stopped. So you're talking about 4 quarters of booing, "Let's Go Lions," you know, blue jerseys everywhere. It was basically a Detroit home game. If all that happens for 3 hours, At that point, yeah, you have no choice if you're Mickey Loomis. You have no choice but to say, look, there's no way I can roll y'all back out here for another week. I mean, Mickey is begging for Dennis and Pete to just survive. Like, hey, can y'all just kind of like win a game? Can y'all just do anything to make this easier for me? Like, I'm trying to keep y'all around to the offseason. I'm trying to have y'all's back, but this ain't it. You know, like going down 21-0. I said this with the Atlanta game. These are awful performances. Think about it. Minnesota, awful performance. Maybe the worst performance of the season. Go into a bye week. Then you have Atlanta. Awful performance. Division rival, biggest rival, Thanksgiving weekend. And you absolutely lay an egg. 6 field goals attempted. Okay, maybe you learn from that. You come back home. Boom. Within the first 5 minutes, you're down 21-0. I mean, this level of bad that we've seen for the better part of 5 weeks is unbelievable. It's laughable. It gets worse and worse and worse. And I don't know how much longer the Saints brass can survive these kind of performances. If they lose or get rolled to Carolina,
losing, your financial base at that sense, and you're almost forced into taking action. And I thought that was the point that it had reached. And then, like you said, they fought back. They keep going. I think it was enough to keep it together. And you can almost look at this game if it was out of context from the rest of the season and find things to be positive about. I like the fight. I like that Derek Carr went 15-15. Yep. I like, the way Chris Olave played. There were a lot of things that I thought went well during the comeback, but it's just too much of that. It's too much of the same. It's too much of the, just kind of being stuck in the mud, and you kind of get to the end of it, and it's just like, it's just kind of like nothing. Like I don't really know how to put it, but
I feel like the Saints are doing two things. They're like playing two different games during the game. They're playing their opponent, but they're also kind of like practicing. They're also seemingly kind of like trying to figure out what works for them in real time. They're trying to like work things out in real time. Meanwhile, while they're working things out in real time, the other team is winning. And then by the time the Saints realize, like, oh yeah, I forgot we were in a game, by that time the game's already over. That's what every game feels like. It feels like they go in there with really like, yeah, let's see if this works. Let's see if this works. Okay, we'll try this. We'll try that. And then it's like, oh man, hey, it's the fourth quarter. Like, oh wow, we're actually in a regular season game. I said it in a couple of videos ago, but the Saints desperately need a preseason right now. They need like a couple games that don't count, that they can kind of get these reps in and work through some of the stuff. Because right now they are searching for answers. And unfortunately, we're watching them search for those answers. Where it should be in practice, it should have been in the preseason, it should have been in training camp. We're watching it play out every single Sunday.
The thing I would say is last year, it was games like this where, you kept seeing the fight, the players not quitting, that I thought got Dennis Allen year 2. I don't think that's enough to get him year 3. Like, you actually have to start winning some of these games. And this was just another lost opportunity. And the slow starts are a huge issue. And I thought the most interesting thing to come out of the game is Colin Saunders after the game said they aren't scouting them well enough and they aren't preparing well enough for what teams are doing at the start of games. And
the players have been very, very obvious. They've been very open with they're not prepared well. They're not scheming well. All of that is not good. Preparation. The only thing the players have consistently said is that the locker room is together. The players are together. But they have not once defended these coaches in the last 4 or 5 weeks.
We've seen it now 6-7 weeks in a row where they get off to these slow starts. So they got to figure that out. That's a coaching issue. All of it's a coaching issue. And it's just more of the same, man.
And, okay, so some of the things that we wanted to see be better, red zone offense. It was, your 4-4. If you take a deep dive into it, though, Detroit, one of the worst teams in the league at stopping teams in the red zone, one of the worst teams stopping teams through the air. And so, the success, although it's exciting because you've been so bad, it's you take a look at who you did it against and still, you kind of all right, was that really more of the Saints or was that more of the Lions? And so.
No, I think that's unfair because the Saints have done virtually nothing against bad teams. They did virtually nothing against the Bears. Virtually nothing against the Vikings, virtually nothing against the Falcons. So it's not like the Saints dominate bad teams, and then Detroit is just kind of a team that they had success against, but, below average defense. The Saints aren't having success against anybody. So to see them have success, especially against a team that like Detroit, who is a legit playoff team, a legit threat in the NFC, to see that success, I'll take it. So I don't care. I would not factor in that Detroit is a lesser defensive opponent. I wouldn't factor that in at all.
It's a weird game because, like, I want to take positive things from it, Nick, but like when you do like a deep dive into the analytics of it, like you should be doing those things.
Yeah.
Yeah, and look, here's the thing that's going to end up happening with the way the season plays out is, like you just said, they went 4-4 in the red zone against one of the worst red zone teams, and then the rest of the schedule is pretty soft. So you're going to
last 5 games we've documented every week here. You got to win those 5 games. Bottom line,
see things that you like about this team down the stretch, and people are going to talk about it, and it's going to need to be put into context, because if you go and you beat Carolina and you beat the Giants, like, all right, like, what does that really mean? These are 2 of the worst teams in the league. You put up some better numbers. The red zone numbers are going to look better.
Yeah.
The offense is going to look better, and it's not going to mean anything because you're measuring yourself against just the worst teams in the league at this point down the stretch. The Rams is probably the only tough game left. They look like they're playing a little bit better. They got their offense going. That's going to be our game. But the other 4 are all extremely, extremely winnable games, and I expect the Saints to look decent in them. The only real question right now is whether or not Derek Carr plays.
It's crazy how it's like, these are winnable games, and 2 of them were against Tampa, who dog walked us at home, and the other one is against Atlanta, who dog walked us in Atlanta. Like, it's crazy how the winnable games, the Saints just have trouble winning.
Yeah,
I think you probably shouldn't at this point. Just
we're talking about 2
we'll
concussions in 4 weeks, correct?
Yeah, and then 3 shoulder injuries. He's got a rib injury. I think that there might be some wisdom in just kind of taking a step back, allowing things to decompress a little bit, kind of get everything under control, get the narrative, just kind of calm down, allow him to get into a better headspace.
See, I kind of push back on that too, because the narrative will not calm down if you make the change to Jameis and give Jameis the 2 worst defenses in the NFL. Like, if you make this change, you have to know the risk that Jameis could light up the Panthers. Jameis could light up the Giants. Then do you just say Jameis is the starting quarterback? And then all of a sudden you have a quarterback controversy on your hands? Like, that is a real issue for the front office. If you do not want to throw gas on the fire like Nick's talking about, if you don't want to continue the narrative, if you want to kind of let everything decompress, there is nothing that's going to decompress if we beat Carolina 35-3 and Jameis has 5 touchdowns. That's not going to be any decompression at all. All that's going to do is ramp up this divide between Jameis and Derek Carr. So I'm not saying Jameis should start. I'm not saying Derek should start. But if you are the front office, I would advise factoring that in, because I don't think it's that easy to just say, like, letting Derek sit will let the narrative relax and let things decompress.
Allow that frustration to kind of boil away a little bit and then kind of come back at it. I don't think that would be the worst thing in the world, but I think they'll still probably win this game against Carolina with Jameis at quarterback. And again, I think people are going to be really positive about some of the stuff they're seeing, but I think it needs to be kept in proper context. And hopefully them showing life against bad teams isn't the thing that kind of like erases everything else that happens, sort of like as a palate cleanser at the end, because that would be a real shame for them to buy back into this when I think we have enough evidence to kind of know what it really is.
So, Nick, obviously, like, we talk about the Saints every day. You talk about the Saints every day. So, like, when we're taking a look at what the Saints should do at quarterback, maybe we have different thoughts than others across the country. Like, if you listen to the announcers on the broadcast, they were surprised that Taysom Hill wasn't the quarterback. Like, when Jameis came in, I mean, I don't know how many times they said the Jameis experience. They must have gotten paid every time they said it. They said it like 10 times, like, within 3 minutes. But they were, thinking that Taysom Hill maybe should be the quarterback. Like, what's like that noise like on the outside? Like, obviously we're close to the situation here, and we think the Saints will put Jameis Winston in there. Taysom Hill will kind of stay the same. Like, is there a lot of people that think Taysom should be the quarterback right now with Derek Carr out if he does?
I think the mass media likes Taysom. Teams that don't follow the Saints, I think they know Taysom. Like, he's the one guy on the Saints that if you don't follow this team closely, you probably know of, because he's such a unique player. He's such a dynamic player. He's such a fun player to watch. People like watching that. I have said a million times, Taysom starting as just a quarterback is a huge disservice to Taysom. Taysom is at his best when he's catching the ball a little bit, running the ball a little bit, taking snaps at quarterback a little bit. When he's doing all of that, he is really, really good. If you make him just play quarterback, you take away all the stuff that makes him special. Taysom Hill is, I forgot who said it, but he is an amazing throwing running back. He is an average to below average throwing quarterback. Let Taysom do what he does best. Let him be good. He's the only thing that's been good consistently for this offense all season long. I don't understand why people want to take the one thing we've been successful with and try and fit it into a quarterback. Like, the quarterback thing is not our issue. We have the quarterback thing solved, theoretically. We paid a guy $150 million to come in here and be the quarterback. Derek Carr is the starting quarterback. Derek Carr will be the starting quarterback next year. If Derek Carr is hurt, we have a backup quarterback. It's Jameis Winston. Taysom Hill is something else. Taysom Hill should not factor into the quarterback thing at all. And let me talk about Jake Haener too. People keep saying play Haener, play Jake Haener. Why would you throw Haener into this? Like, that's something else that always gets tossed out there. It's like really bad teams or teams that are scuffling. It's always like play the young guy, play the fifth round draft pick young guy. That's the last thing you want to do, is take Jake Haener, who was suspended to start the season, a late round draft pick. There's no telling what kind of development he's had. To take him in a very volatile situation where the fans are booing you, the team is under a tremendous amount of pressure in 5 must-win games at home, that is the last time on earth you want to feed a young player to the NFL. That ain't it. Because all that happens there is if Jake Haener folds, the fans are ready to pounce. Even if he doesn't fold, even if he's just below average, which rookie quarterbacks tend to be. Even if he's just below average, fans are ready, they're out for blood. There's no room for error. This isn't the time. This is absolutely not the time. I would tell Jake Haener, brother, leave your cleats at home. I am saving you from this. This is why we have Derek Carr. This is why we have Jameis Winston. This is not why we have you. Your time will come. We're going to see what you have in training camp. We're going to see what you have every day in practice. We're going to see what you have other ways. We are not going to see what you have here in this moment. So the Jake Haener thing, that is so far off the table.
In fact, miss this game?
Yeah, it's definitely divided. There's a ton of people that think that way. Sometimes I think that way too. I just don't think that they would do it. But the problem with going to Taysom is that you can't make the full commitment to him. And I will go down, I'll be on my dying bed wondering what it would look like if they would have ever fully committed to Taysom. I don't even think Sean Payton did it. I don't think they went far enough in that direction. They kind of like tried to add it in with what they were doing instead of just kind of tearing it down and building a whole new system around him. And I think it could have succeeded in, higher fashion probably. But here's the reason why I would go with Jameis. Like, I think that you can split the snaps if you wanted to. You could play Taysom more if you wanted to. But
see, that's what I would do. Why start Taysom when Taysom's role is perfectly built for this moment? Let Taysom instead, because you're playing your backup quarterback, let Taysom all of a sudden get like 10 of those passing snaps. Do that. Split it. That's perfect. The idea of like, well, let's make Taysom take all the quarterback snaps. It's like that's not what you want him to be there for. It makes so much sense to have Jameis start and Jameis get 16, 17 snaps, and then Taysom get 13, 14 of the passing snaps. And then he can still run his actual offense of Taysom running and Taysom out wide and Taysom playing tight end and all of that. So it's like we're looking at the most obvious answer in the world of how to handle the situation. It blows my mind that people are like, maybe we should start Taysom and completely go away from what's made him so successful.
I think that you lose some of that element of surprise with your offense. You lose a lot of your creativity. There's just a lot of things you're unable to do if you go to Taysom full-time a quarterback. So I think you got to use the combination and just kind of up Taysom's usage within it. And I think there's things that Jameis does well. I think there's things that Taysom does well. And I think if you get creative enough, there's a good blend for both of them. But
yeah, I agree.
Look, Jameis has had and one of the reasons I say I would step back if I were Carr, Jameis has had every opportunity to steal this job. And He just hasn't. He hasn't. He's come in and, you know, he threw the pick against Tampa. I think that was probably an unfair situation to put him in. Blew the 17-point lead against the Packers. I think that was a bad situation to put him in. You know, the Minnesota game, it looked like there was some weirdness there. And I don't want to say too much here. I've heard whispers about some different things about just kind of like issues about like just, you know, things that were happening on the field. So until we confirm that up, I'm going to back off it. So I won't put full stock in that. But this one too, like he didn't throw a good pass this whole game. So there were just some situations where, you know, I think that, you know, I think that he could have took the job and he didn't. So if I were Carr, I'd be okay with taking the step back and kind of looking.
That would be the only reason. The only reason you take the step back is if you believe Jameis, he doesn't have what it takes. If you're Derek Carr and you're willing to take the risk, then okay. If that, you know, that he would know much more than I would. But if Derek Carr is there and Derek Carr sees Jameis and Derek Carr knows like he ain't taking this job, you know, if that's the case, okay, you know, maybe take the risk.
Out it from that distance, but look, I think Jameis could play a little bit better if he got to start and they build a game plan around him. I still kind of want to see it. We haven't seen him with good weapons. He's got Chris Olave now. Like, there's just things that I would like to see about it. But yeah, I don't think that they go to Taysom, but I could see an argument for it for sure.
So no matter who plays quarterback, you've got to run the football better. And that is something the Saints have just not been able to do. And I don't think it's because of who they have running the ball. AK, Taysom Hill, like whoever you give the ball to.
Well, Taysom has been good running the ball. He's been the only positive running that's happened. Alvin Kamara, love him, think he's the man. Certainly is not him. So I'm with Jacob. I don't think it's the people running the football.
It's been hard. And as I watched the end zone copy of the Saints this week, and I said it yesterday, I'm not sure where to tell the running back where to go. You know what I mean? Like I'm watching the play and inside, outside zone, no matter what it is, I'm like, as a running back watching tape, if I was their coach, if I was a running back coach, Nick, I don't know where I'd tell them to go because there's just not a lot there. It's guys losing on the front side. So when they lose on the front side, you want to cut it backside. Then the guy on the backside is losing, and there's just nowhere to go. And it doesn't matter who plays quarterback. Like, and I keep picking on him, and I'm sorry, but if Cesar Ruiz keeps blocking in the run game like he is, I'm not sure it matters what quarterback, because you're going to basically turn into somebody who can only do one thing, which is throw the football for success.
Yeah, look, they have not figured it out. It's a massive disappointment. And
well, that's why I thought it was so surprising last game when they ran the ball like 40 times. Because you know, at this point in the season, guys, we know who we are. We know who the Saints are. We know what they can do well. We know what they can't do well. I don't know, like if you're and I've been kind of picking on Jamal Williams all week with this, but if you're the Saints brass and you're putting together a game plan, how in the world do you land on Jamal Williams' first down runs? I don't get that. I don't understand how that can possibly be what you look at your play card and you're like, all right, yeah, this works. No, we think we can run the ball well. We think Jamal Williams is a guy who he should probably get these first down runs. Yeah. I mean, all you're doing there is you're just basically forfeiting the play. You're basically saying, like, we'll forfeit this play for 2 yards. You know, I don't know if they're just so dead set on getting these plays in, but it blows my mind whenever I see it, because they got to know, like, we can't run the football. And I'm not saying they should never try and run it, but run the successful plays a la Taysom, get Kamara some carries. Beyond that, why force the Jamal Williams carries?
You know, they got to start looking at everything from the coaching. You know, the offensive line coach, I think, has left something to be desired. You haven't gotten anything out of Trevor Penning. Maybe Trevor Penning's just a bust. But look, he wasn't even in there in the jumbo package on Sunday, which is just kind of insane at this point. You pointed out Caesar. I think Caesar's kind of been disappointing there. You know, across the board, I think everybody except for McCoy and Ramczyk, I think, has left a lot to be desired in that area of the game. And you know, that's what they have to be. You're supposed to be taking pressure off of these quarterbacks. Derek Carr isn't supposed to have to go out there and win games for you singularly. It's supposed to be like a supportive effort. You know, the one thing we've been hammering on the play action, you are seeing more play action. They're seeing a little bit more success with some of those plays. But, you know, if you're running the ball better, I think those plays become even more effective. So,
hell yeah.
It's something.
Running the ball better helps everything, especially play action.
That has to get we keep saying has to get figured out, has to get figured out, has to get figured out. It's like we're at the end of the season.
I know.
They ain't figuring it out.
Look, yes, we are not figuring it out. All right, bad players aren't going to become good players in the last 3 weeks, 4 weeks of the season. Bad coaches aren't going to become good coaches, especially when those bad coaches have been around for 20 years in Pete Carmichael, and Dennis Allen is like 70-something games into being a head coach. So it is just what it is. And, when we sit here and we break down these videos and we're 30 minutes into a video and we've said, well, the Saints really can't run the ball. They really can't stop the run. They really can't pressure the passer. They really can't pass the ball. They really can't protect the quarterback. When you name all those things, it's like, you know what? I'm starting to feel like the Saints just aren't a good team. And a lot of this stuff that we believed they could do, we were just wrong. We were wrong. I can say I was wrong. I thought the Saints were going to push the ball. I thought Derek Carr was going to throw the ball downfield. I thought we were going to be explosive. I thought we were going to get the ball in our playmakers' hands. I thought we were going to have success on the ground. I thought, all that stuff. I thought the defense was elite, could be elite. All that stuff is wrong. Not just one of it, or one part of it, not just two parts of it, all of it. Every single part of it so far has been wrong. The Saints are right now, the Saints are a bad football team. I think their ceiling is probably somewhere around average-ish. And with this schedule, average can get you 10 wins. The Pittsburgh Steelers are probably going to win 10 games. Does anyone here think the Pittsburgh Steelers are above average? No, right? So you don't have to be great to win 10 games, especially with a soft schedule. So the Saints can be average, win 10 games. But if you look at the Steelers, you can at least point to them and be like, what can they do well? Pressure the quarterback. They at least have a defensive end in TJ Watt who can get after the quarterback. The Saints, it's hard to pinpoint good. It's hard to pinpoint positives. And I do like the roster. I do think this is a roster that can win. I think the coaching and the really niche aspects of the game, the offensive line, certain parts of their play, certain parts of the defensive line play, not the whole thing. The whole defensive line isn't bad. It's just those certain aspects of that play or of their play is bad. And the whole coaching staff, for sure. The Saints are real close to a reset because they have to figure out so much. They have to figure out all the stuff we just talked about as far as fixing the running game, fixing pass protection, fixing pressuring the quarterback, fixing all this stuff. Oh, and they also had to fix the culture. Oh, and they also had to fix the scheme and the play calling and the coaches. So it is a tumultuous time for sure for the Saints.
It's probably cooked at this point, but yeah, I mean, it's a massive disappointment. Look at all the investment on that line. You go across first round, second round, first round, just down the line, and none of them are playing up to par. And it's a massive issue. I mean, I think the misses on the offensive line and kind of just offensive line, defensive line, I think those things legitimately are going to set the organization back years because you got to keep going back to the well to draft them, and now you aren't getting better at other positions. So it's they don't have the money to pay them. You can't go out and sign, these dudes. I mean, they always find a way, but man, if you're setting up your contracts on guys behind guys you drafted, you're double dipping on your resources.
Yep.
The only way their cap management works is if they don't make mistakes, and they're making huge mistakes right now.
They made almost nothing but mistakes.
You're right about that. And so when I look at the matchup this week, well, Carolina, right, bad football team, but they're 4th in the NFL against the pass. Now they're 23rd against the run, so that would tell me, what do we have to do? Well, we have to run the football. But I'm not sure that this Saints team can run the football against anyone. But that's what it tells you because they are really good against the pass. And so, I don't love the matchup. It's a bad football team. They've won a...
I'll also say, I'm not sure where the stats that he's pulling from here, but this is a good example of how we always talk about how stats can be misleading. So let's pretend like he's looking at yards given up through the air, okay? Carolina is, of course, going to give up less yards through the air because they're always going to be losing. So the opposing team more than likely is going to be running the football. You see how that happens? So it's not that, and this is all just hypothetical. This is just kind of a teaching moment. So in that situation, it's not that Carolina is necessarily good against defending the pass. It's that they have to defend the pass and defend the deep pass much less than competitive teams. Because if you're getting blown out every week, and Carolina is losing every week, we can tell by their record, teams against you are just killing the game, killing the clock. They're not pushing the ball downfield. They're not taking chances. They're just running the ball, right? They're just kind of running the game out. So I'm not saying that that's what the stats are that Jacob's pointing to. I'm just saying that sometimes when you look at just a blanket number, that's why I always say yards are a bad stat, like yards per game or yards, because it's so game dependent. It's so, like Jared Goff, for example, with the Saints game. If you look at Jared Goff's stats and he had like whatever it was, 180 yards, you could say, man, Goff didn't do anything. He was terrible. But then you look at the game script and it's like, why would he do anything? They're up 21-0 in the first 5 minutes. They're just going to pound the ball, not do anything stupid, not force any turnovers, and kill the playbook and kill the game. So be careful when it comes to looking at defenses and looking at all that stuff just by the yardage. That's why I always say DVOA is a great ranking source because they weight stats. Sumer Sports, great, one of the best follows on Twitter. Eric Eager and Sumer Sports, if you go there, check their rankings out. They kind of show you a truer look at run defenses, pass defenses, and the flip side on offense.
Singular game. It was close the last time you played them. Like, if you lose this game, we've been talking about it, and it is what it is. Dennis Allen, 10th worst winning percentage in NFL history as a head coach. If you lose to a one-win team that's already fired their coach, playing as bad as they are, if that's not enough, Nick, then it's just not going to happen.
I don't think.
Yeah, I agree with that. Look, if you lose to them in the Superdome, like it is going to be hideous. And I'm telling you, this atmosphere on Sunday was the wildest one I've ever been in the Super.
How many times have I said that this week? How many times have I said that this week? I have never ever felt something like that in the Superdome, and I've been to every home game for more than 10 years. Inexplainable. I mean, it was the wildest atmosphere I've ever been in. I've said it all week long, and now Nick Underhill's saying it, and he goes to away games. Like he is with this team every single week, every single game, and he's saying, "I've never seen anything like this." Same. We are in a like generational moment right now with the Saints. This is the same as the Aints era. This is the same as whatever era. Like, this is a pivotal moment as a Saints fan and for the organization. This is a trend. Like, don't get it. This isn't just a season. This is so many other things are happening. This really is a cultural moment for the New Orleans Saints.
Superdome. I've never seen it like that. The only one that came close to it was the Bills. I think they're in 2020. There were a lot of Bills fans in there, but the booing Derek Carr, cheering Taysom Hill going in.
Yeah.
The "Let's Go Lions" chants were loud, man.
Wow.
Detroit's not a team that typically, like, correct me if I'm wrong, I played in the AFC, but like Detroit's not typically a team that takes over your stadium. Like you'll have that against the Packers or the Steelers or somebody. Like Detroit, that's the team that's taking over your stadium?
I've never seen it, but look, I'll with fairness to Detroit, I've never seen Detroit with a good team in my lifetime. So
that is so fair.
True.
That's a hell of a point,
Same.
Nick. That's a great point.
Yeah. I don't know what they're like when they're motivated. They might have just been sitting back for 2 decades waiting for their moment. So this might have been it, but it was crazy in there. Like it was wild. And if they lose to Carolina, I don't think we're going to see Carolina fans take it over, which might be worse for the Saints because that just means there's more anger in the building amongst their own fans. So they got to win. They got to win this game. If you lose this game, I mean, I think the city might make the decision for you. And I hear stories about like how Tom Benson used to get like cussed out in the community and stuff. And like, that would kind of bring like change to it. Like, I think this is the message. Like, and they got to listen. You can't lose to Carolina. I don't know. Like I said, I thought it was done this week just because I'm thinking like, okay, you lose this game, they turned on you. You're going to just bring the fans back here 2 weeks in a row to just tee off on you after losing this game in the stadium in that fashion. And again, I think they silenced a lot of it. You were hearing cheers by the end. People bought back in. But if you lose to Carolina, a one-win team, I don't know how you just stay the course.
Yeah, and so
the metaphor that I would give right now is like, pretend you're in the car with like a first-time driver, and they're driving insane, and you're fighting for your life, but you're like a block off from the house. You're basically just like, get to the house, and then I'm never letting you drive again. That's how I feel like they are with Dennis Allen. And in the metaphor, we're a block off. We're not in a situation where it's like, well, if they navigate this last block well, maybe I'll get in the car with them again. Doesn't matter. Like if Dennis Allen navigates this last block well and we win five straight, or if we win 4 out of 5, or we look good, or the offense clicks or whatever, I think enough damage has been done, not only to the team, like the product on the field, but damage has been done to the organization, like how the Saints are viewed. Enough damage has been done to that. I think doesn't matter what the end of the last block, as some would say, looks like. I don't think we're ever letting Dennis Allen drive the car again.
Like, look at the Saints situation, and look, they're the team because they haven't had a lot of success in their franchise history, right? Early 90s was fun. Early 2000s, there was some fun, but we know what the Saints organization is, and it didn't change until Drew Brees and Sean Payton. And then once it did, it's like, man, you had so many bad relationships, and you finally find the one. And you have the one, and it's going great for like a decade plus. And then all of a sudden, because life is life, the one even turns sour. But you're holding on to that one, Nick, because you don't want to let go, because you remember the good times. You remember what if
somebody's been watching Hallmark Christmas romance movies. Goodness.
Felt like when you found the one. And that's where the Saints are right now. Like they're holding on to the good times because they just didn't have a lot. And in some aspect, like I know what you're doing, because like you've had so many few moments in your franchise history, you don't want to let go. You don't want that window to close, but it's slammed shut.
I don't agree with that. I don't agree that the Saints are holding on to the Brees Payton thing. I think the Saints were, they were a bad franchise, but then they had 15 years there where they had legit success. They had legit teams where they thought could win the Super Bowl year in and year out. They had legit relevant teams that were on prime time, putting up 50 points a game. They had exciting offenses. They had all that stuff. So I think what happened was that the fan base just now expects more. I think we're now we expect to compete. We expect to win. We expect to hang banners, go to the playoffs, compete for a Super Bowl, be exciting. We're a destination city. Like the Superdome is a destination place. It hosts Super Bowls and Sugar Bowls and college football playoffs and national championships. And the city, the culture of the team has changed, and that happens. I mean, the Patriots, same thing. Like the Patriots aren't holding on to Tom Brady and all that stuff. They're holding on to the idea that they're a winning franchise, and their culture just changed. They expect to win. That happens. It happens whenever a team goes through a decade or whatever of being good. Like the Golden State Warriors. Like before Steph Curry, no one cared about the Warriors, but now they are a shining example of success in the NBA, and that's just not going to go away. Those fans, when Steph and Draymond and all of them retire, the fans aren't going to be okay with losing. They're not going to be okay with being the worst team in the NBA. So this is a good shift, I think, for the Saints fans, at least culturally, that they are basically dead set on winning. They're not okay with being average. They're not okay with being middle of the road. They're not okay with being 500. They want something. They want to be good. That happens. That happens when you have a long period of success. So I don't think it's as much holding on to Sean Payton and holding on to Drew Brees as much as it's like, to use his example of finding the one, it would be like dating, horrible partners, and then you find a partner who elevates your life, and all of a sudden you're going to better restaurants, and you're taking care of yourself, and your lifestyle changes for the better, and all of a sudden you're working out and you're reading books, and you're everything just seems to be better. It's elevating you as a person. It's elevating your lifestyle. And then if you and that person split, going down the metaphor rabbit hole here, if you and that person split, you now all of a sudden expect more in your life. You now expect, all those things to remain the same. You're not okay with going back to before. You've seen kind of the better side of things, so now you want that moving forward. That's where I think the Saints are. They want that elevated level of success moving forward. They're not okay with what we currently have.
It's no longer open, and that's the thing. It's like this team, I think they can be more with something new, but it's just like they're holding on to pieces, and no team in the NFL has really held on to pieces this long like the Saints. Like, it happens, sure. Like, and even New England, like in Bill Belichick, that might change this year. I think the Saints just have to realize that the one was great while it lasted, but now it's time to tell the kids.
Yeah, but who are the pieces? Like, who are the pieces that you want to get rid of? Because really the impact pieces are like Alvin Kamara and who else? Like Chris Olave, I guess, Marshawn Lattimore. But even like the older guys like Cam Jordan and if he moves on or he doesn't, that's not going to affect the result at the end of the day. It's not going to affect the standings that much. I mean, Demario Davis has been really good. So, like, the pieces that he's talking about aren't the problem. And teams can turn around. Windows can be shut for a brief period of time and then reopen real quick. You look at Detroit. Their window is shut for a long time and reopen like that. With the right head coach, the right quarterback, the right draft picks, boom, all of a sudden, your window's open. Miami was nothing 2 years ago, hired Mike McDaniel, draft Tua, boom, window's open. Their window was open last year, McDaniel's first year. So it can happen. You certainly can have a window closing, make the right decisions, bring in the right head coach, get the right quarterback in there, make a free agent acquisition or a trade or something like Tyreek Hill was to Miami, and all of a sudden your franchise is completely changed overnight. So the old school days of, like, you have a window and then that window closes and then you rebuild the window, that with the player movement and the coaching movement and all that, it's a little different nowadays.
I agree. I don't disagree with anything you're saying. Look, I understand trying to keep it together. Like, there was logic in it. There was merit to the thought process.
I agree, yes.
Yeah.
It's just kind of in your face at this point that it is what it is. This is as good as it's going to get. You had every opportunity this season to be, run away with it. I mean, they had every injury break their way. Their schedule, I think I seen the other day, is like third weakest in the NFL. Like, they had every opportunity to run away with this thing and they didn't. So the fact that you didn't, and now your defense is part of the problem, it just feels like it's run its course. It really does. And,
I agree.
Maybe we're wrong here. Maybe they went out or whatever, but like it get in the playoffs, win a game. But like right now, today, looking at it, it is hard to see anything else but like, all right, they tried this, didn't work how they wanted. So what happens next?
Agreed.
Yeah. Man, gosh, it's just such a great run. Superdome. I mean, just peak of NFL fandom. I know anytime that I came in as a visitor, it was always weird, by the way, coming into the Superdome as a visitor, but it was always one of the best atmospheres that I played in the NFL. It matched Arrowhead and all the great stadiums, Heinz and all those. And you still have the fans, but you will lose the fans if you don't start to change your ways. Nick, what do y'all have coming up this week? neworleans.football.
There you go. Good video. Long video. A lot of metaphors in there for us. Thank you for watching, ladies and gentlemen. Go down in the comments below. Let me know what you thought about everything. Should Taysom start at quarterback? Which metaphor was your favorite? Thank you for watching. I will see you in the next video.